Bakalım doğaya zapis. Aha, zapis kıldık. Aha, zapis kılındı. So, the topic of this lesson is adaptation or adapting learning and teaching materials. When we teachers have established the objectives of the lesson and have chosen the method with which we can get to these objectives, it is time for us to take a closer, more critical look at the materials. As teachers, we between relevant material and the irrelevant material. So what is relevant material? It is the materials that can be used unchanged. It comes to all of our objectives. Irrelevant materials, inappropriate material, sometimes to our objectives, sometimes to our learners, sometimes to the teachers' needs, yeah? So according to these kind of factors, we have to omit, to replace or change textbook materials. Madsen and Bauer says that every teacher is, in a very sense, an adapter of the material he uses, employing one or more of a number of techniques, like supplementing, editing, expanding, personalizing, simplifying, modernizing, localizing, or modifying cultural or situational content. So which factors usually influence on material selection? It is, first of all, the objective of the lesson, or the objective of the activity we are using during the lesson. Second, it is the method. Third, it is the content of the lesson. It is the topic of the lesson. So according to the topic or according to the content, we usually select materials. And also learners' level, their age, their interests, their cultural background also influence on our material selection. And the time of the learning. If one of these factors do not allow us to use the material as it stands, we should adapt them. So what is adaptation? What is adaptation? What is adaptation? Adaptation is the process of changing something so that it can be used for our purposes. For example, the purpose of the material is quite different for the purpose of the teaching. So we'd like this material, for example, to serve to our purposes. In this case, we usually adapt the materials. Before adapting the materials, teachers should answer to these three questions. The first question, what does this material or this exercise, this activity get the learners to do? For example, some exercise wants the learner just to pronounce the words, just paying attention to the pronunciation, yeah, or just to learn the structure. So we should first of all identify the objective of the material, or by material we mean also the exercise and the activity. Second question, what do I want the learner to do? Or what is my objective? Do I want the learner just only pronounce the words or just learn the structure? And the third question is, how can I get the exercise to do what I want to do for the learner? Or how can I get this exercise to serve to my objectives? So these are three essential questions teachers should identify before adapting the material. For example, let's look at these kind of materials. Let's look at this kind of materials. So these materials are taken by me from school books for 5th, for 6th classes. Yeah, for example, the task of this material is change the following sentences as in example. And also example is given, yeah. This is my book, and these are our books. This kind of exercises are usually called mechanical transformation exercises. Mechanical transformation exercises. So in this case, this mechanical transformation exercise, practicing demonstratives. And the aim is intended to be done individually in written form. For example, you don't like this kind of mechanical transformation exercises. You want to develop your learners' speaking skills. Or you don't like the task to be done individually. You want your learners to work in groups or in pairs, yeah? And you also don't like the task to be done in written form, yeah? In this case, you should adapt this kind of materials. Or one more task is, for example, rewrite these sentences using correct form of the conditional. This is a typical exercises we usually have in our course books, yeah? For example, yes, if a man with a knife, in brackets, the verb stop, in infinitive form of the verb, and then we should change it, yeah, using the correct conditional. Again, this exercise is given for structure. So in this, when we have this kind of exercise, we want to change. So what is the purpose of adaptation? There are two purposes of adaptation. It is to make the material more suitable for the circumstances. What do we mean by circumstance? It is the needs and the interests of our learners, or the teacher's own capabilities, or the time of this lesson, yeah? So according to these kind of circumstances, we adapt the material. The second is to compensate for any intrinsic deficiencies in the material. For example, the material suggested by the course book have some kind of linguistic inaccuracies, or it is out of date, it is not modern, yeah, or there are lack of authenticity or lack of variety, yeah, and in this case, we don't like this material. We want to adapt them. So for these kind of purposes, we usually do adaptation. There are two forms of adaptation. When adapting, we may add something, or it is called adaptation as addition, or adaptation as change, or we change something. Sometimes we add something, or sometimes we change something, yeah? So as adaptation as addition, there are three techniques, three ways of adaptation as addition: extemporization, extension, or exploitation. The terms are very difficult, yeah, but they are called in methodological books. Yes, this is methodological terms, so that's why I should give them to you. So what is extemporization? What is extemporization? This is a spontaneous response of the teacher to a problem or an opportunity. Spontaneous response. In what case we usually use extemporization? For example, we see as first form, substitution of familiar example for the unfamiliar. So we see that the examples given in the material, in the exercise, yeah, is quite familiar for our learners. For example, this is a book, this is a pen, yeah, pen, book is quite familiar example. And you want to change them to unfamiliar examples in order for our learners to give more opportunity to enlarge the vocabulary. The second is paraphrasing of textbook instruction or explanations that has not been understood. Sometimes textbook instructions are very difficult for our learners to understand. Yeah, so we explain in our own words, simplify them, yeah, paraphrase this exercise. This is called extemporization. And the third is reference to previously taught items, structures, vocabulary, phonemes, when teaching new items. Again, most of the teachers usually use, yes, this kind. When teaching new items, we usually refer to the previous taught items, yeah, for example, nouns, verbs, yes. So these kind of things are called extemporization, spontaneous response. The next is extension, something added to something long, is a provision of additional material by the teacher for the examples of a rule or for the items of exercise in order to enhance understanding or learning. Sometimes we see that the examples, the sentences, yeah, the words given in the textbook is not quite enough for our learners to understand. So in this case, we add our own examples, our own words, yeah? So this is called extension. Extension means more of the same, more of the same. The third technique, the third form of adaptation as addition, it is exploitation. Exploitation. It is the process of making use of something so that you gain as much as possible from it. It is a creative use of what is already there. Text, visual activity to serve teachers additional purposes. It means exploiting. In Russian, it is called exploitation. So using something for our own purposes. For example, we have a picture of like a picture of Berdach, yeah, in our classroom, and we can use this picture for describing an old man's appearance. Yeah? So this is called exploitation. The next thing is adaptation as change. So while adapting, we change something. What can we change? The process of change include, for example, we can change the language. We can change the language of explanation, the language of examples, the language of texts, exercises, and the language that students are expected to know, to produce. Because you know that the language of the text, for example, exercise or texts are quite difficult. You know the level of your learners. Yes, they can't take this kind of language. So according to this, you can change the language, simplify the language. Yeah. Again, the next, you can change the context and the content to which the language relates. That you can change the context because you think that the culture of the context, the culture of the content is not appropriate to our learners. Some points in this content are not so good for our learners, yeah, for their upbringing. So you may change it. Procedures and the classroom management. For example, the material suggests one kind of procedures, or who does what, with whom, and how. But you don't like this kind of procedure, you may change it, the procedure. Yeah? For example, the tasks given for the pre-reading activity is quite difficult for your learners. You know that your learners cannot answer these kind of questions, they can answer it after reading it. So you may change its procedure. Or restructuring. Restructuring. Components are reorganized. Components of the materials. For example, the material suggests one component for the beginning part, but you change it for the next part. Yeah. So these kind of changes can be done and in adaptation as change. Principles motivating change. In what case we usually do change? For example, you know the principle of localization. Gulzar, what is the principle of localization? Gulzar, can you answer? So, localization. It is the material, for example, is not quite appropriate to our local students. Yeah, for example, they are given the task, например, describe the Red Square in Moscow. It is not quite appropriate to our learners. You can change it to another material, yeah, because of localization principle, because you know that your students cannot describe the Red Square in Moscow. Personalization. So what kind of principle is personalization? Personalizing. For example, they are given the life of African, например, person, yeah, their impressions, their feelings, yeah, but it is not quite interesting for our learners, yeah, the life of African people. So you can change it. You can use our own person, or you can just can take the learner's own life, their for example, their village, their city, yeah, their school, for example, not African school. Қосылма, ұшып кетті саған. Естіліп тұр ғой, иә? Көзал?
Естіліп тұр тауа.
Естіліп тұр тауа.
Let's continue. Individualization. Principle of individualization is according to our learners' abilities. For example, the material is for example, for kinesthetics, yeah. But you know that most of your learners are visual, audials, yeah. So you can change. This is individualization. For example, this principle, it is up-to-date materials, yeah, modern materials, not the text about Nokia, but text about smartphones.
Аляпа.
No.
Аляпа.
No.
Принятие жіберіңдер, сізден не сұрап тұрды?
Please, қазір көріп жіберем. Кімді? Манзура ма?
Білмеймін, группада жазылады да, бізде принятие жіберің деп.
Принять еттім ол.
Яқшы болды.
So. The next. Біреудің фамилиясы непонятный.
Шахсимон, это Шахзада.
Simplification principle. So simplifying according to our learner's level. Yeah, simplifying the material. So while changing the material, we should follow these principles. So these are in brief about adaptation. So what you learned about adaptation, Nazakat? What you learned about adaptation?
Changing materials according to your student's level.
Yeah.
Also according to the place where we are teaching and according to the persons we are going to teach. And if we are teaching English language in Uzbekistan, then we should change the persons and the information about places into the places and person who are in Uzbekistan. If the text the information is given about America or Africa, then we change it, adapt it to our place, to our students.
But not all the time, yeah, you say, Nazakat. Sometimes when you consider that this material is not quite useful for our learners. Yeah, for example, yeah, it is better to describe our own local things, yeah. Our own person, yeah, in this case. Nice, wonderful. Guzal, what can you say about adaptation? What can you say about adaptation as addition? We have two techniques, yeah, adaptation as addition and adaptation as change. Guzal, as adaptation as addition. We said
adaptation as addition. We add some new information to the material.
Extemporization, extension, exploitation, yeah, we said these kind of things about adaptation. So any questions concerning to this topic, concerning to adaptation? So we are teachers, should be able to adapt their own materials. Yeah, creating their own materials, designing their own materials, and also adapting their own materials again. Any questions to me concerning to this topic? Any questions? Is everything clear? No questions means you understand everything and you understand nothing.
And I have one question, Alyapa.
Okay. Now, these, I'm going to give tasks to you. And tomorrow, I'd like you to do these tasks and put into the group in, I don't know in what form, in Word form, Dama, yeah? You should adapt these materials. And you should, tomorrow, I'm waiting the results of these materials. For example, this task, yeah? This task is for listening, yeah? Listen to the Yusupova. Listen to the tape and fill in the blanks with appropriate words and the phrases. For example, you don't like something in this task. Yeah, you should adapt this task according to your learners. You should then explain the objective of your adaptation. Why you adapt this material? Yeah. For what factor? Learner factor, internet, learner factor, teacher factor, or other topic factor, content factor, yeah? Why are you adapting this material? The next material. The next material. So task 2. Read the linking words in the box and sort them out into cause and effect columns. Cause and effect, just cause and effect column. You don't like this material, again, you should adapt them. You should adapt them. The next material, speaking task. Look back and think about a moment you faced either an academic or personal life problem. Tell the whole group how you overcame the situation. You don't like this material. Again, this task, yeah, you should adapt them. The next task, look at the photo in which the messy study room is depicted. Make up several possible sentences using need plus to or need plus in to tidy the room. Share them with your partner. I need to, or the room needs something. Yeah, you don't like this material, you should change it. The last task is work in 3 groups, discuss the following quotes and present the meaning to the whole class. You should adapt again this task. So 5 tasks, difficult tasks, but yeah. So yeah, 5 tasks for you for adaptation. So tomorrow you should adapt this material, and I don't know, we should agree in what form. In Zoom form, in Zoom Dama presentation you should prepare, or in Word form you should put it into the group. Everybody.
Alapa, birinchi task listening bedi?
Listening, yeah. You don't like
all listening
task, for example, fill in the blanks. You don't like the task filling in the just listening and just filling in the blanks. Not filling in the blanks, but maybe according to this listening text, then you should develop their speaking skills or writing skills, yeah? Or creating something. Maybe you don't like this, fill in the blanks with appropriate words. You don't like this text, this task, yeah? So you should adapt them. This is not, for example, for skill development. So in this case, you should, your objective is developing their speaking skills or writing skills. Yeah? In this case, you should adapt them. So any questions? Any misunderstanding?
Alaba, could you share this presentation?
Yes, I can share this presentation. I will put it again in the group, in this ESP group, new group. Yeah, okay?
Okay.
PowerPoint form, I will also put them. Any questions? Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
I have, please, Mihriban, have you any kind of questions?
First task, for example, if our learners don't like gap filling, for example, or their knowledge is not improved by this task, so we should change Task format of
Yes,
this
yes.
task.
Yeah, you should what you should adapt it for your learners. For example, you think that this task is difficult for your learner, you should adapt it. You should simplify them, but you should then explain it why you adapted it in this case. Why you adapted? What is the objective of your adaptation? Or maybe you may add more extemporization bar. Maybe you will exploit this text and use it for another purposes. Yeah?
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other questions? No questions. Then I'll finish this lesson in order not to take your megabytes. Okay, tomorrow, tomorrow, in what form should I wait your tasks? It's better maybe in written form for the first time, yeah? In written form in our groups, in ESP group, in written form, okay?
Would be better.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
but tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we'll again have a Zoom conference, I think, with new topic, with a new topic. Okay.
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 Goodbye, then. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aliyapa.
Okay. Okay. Жазып алып қосылғандар бар ма? Бақ, Манзура.
Мен қосылдым.
Ау, please.
Мен қосылдым.
Спискада.
Записьті өшіруіміз керек.
Тұра берсеңіз бір.